Welcome to another edition of Wins and Losses, where wins are celebrated and losses are lessons. I'm your host, Renee Seiler, and I wanted to do this show because I think a lot of times in this entrepreneurial journey, people talk about all of the wins and all of the high parts about being an entrepreneur. You could be rich, you could be your own boss, and all that other stuff. But we don't really talk about the losses and the tough times. And so I wanted to explore that a little more deeply. And I have these two amazing women with me to do that with. We have Shana Campbell and Amber Donald. Hi, you guys.
Hey there. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I'm really appreciative of your time. And we're gonna really do some deep diving, if you will. So let's start with you, Shana. Tell the audience about your business.
Absolutely. So my name is Shana Campbell, and I'm the CEO of Launch Your Brilliance and also Think, Learn, Engage. So I'm a corporate trainer and consultant, and then I work with entrepreneurs to help them build their business because I believe that their brilliance is their currency. And so, why not get paid for what you know?
I'm Amber Donald, and the name of my business is Unite Mobility Network. I provide inspiration and strategic planning for parents and professionals who care for individuals who are differently able. I do this by consulting and coaching educators on how to add innovation and technology to what they're already doing. Now, I have a daughter who was born with severe spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy and oral dysphagia. Oral dysphagia means a swallowing issue. So at 3 months old, she was diagnosed, and they said she wouldn't live past 4. So I was determined to use all of my education because I have a science background. So I was determined to use my education to keep her alive.
Wow. And she's how old now?
23.
Oh, she's 23.
This year. She'll be 23 in March.
Okay. And they said she wasn't going to live past 4.
Yes, because she couldn't swallow.
Wow.
All of her muscles were weak in the front, and her body was like twisting this way. You could put something in front of her, and she would reach backwards like this, and she couldn't reach forward as an infant. So I had to really work with her through extreme therapy and chiropractic care. Chiropractic care really helped a lot because it allowed her spine to get the treatment that it needed at birth while, she was still cartilage. And so they was able to give her spine alignment because all of her vertebrae were twisted. So when your vertebrae is twisted, it causes your nerves to be pinched, and the signals don't go to the brain the way it's supposed to. So with her spine being twisted and her muscles being tight in some areas and weak in other areas throughout the body, it didn't allow for her to sit up straight. She couldn't go into crawl position. She couldn't walk, do the things necessary to learn how to walk and crawl. She still doesn't crawl, but she does the army effect, to get around because she can't come to her knees.
I pretty much stumbled into entrepreneurship, and I really say that God kind of pushed me there. So it was one of those things where I look at myself as like a bridge from where people are to where they want to get to, right? So from where they are right now currently to where they want to be. And I just really kept saying, I want to do something different. So I'm working in corporate America, and that is, pretty much my story. I fell into the education realm of educating adults by accident. It wasn't something I went to school for, and I loved it. And I was like, well, if this is a job, I'm game, right? And so this is really like my passion and who I am and a part of my personality. And so I kept working at these different jobs, and I kept saying, well, if we could do this, but working in corporate, you're confined by what the goals and the vision and the strategy for the organization is. And I kept praying about it and saying, I want to do something different. I don't know how to actually go there. And I kept getting this nudge to just take the step, take the leap. And then was kind of almost, if you will, kicked out of corporate. So I was kind of forced into this world. And I say kicked out because, just some things changed within the organization that just wasn't becoming and not heading in a direction where I thought my talents could be best used. So I was like, well, let's give it a try. My job became my first contract, and I'll be celebrating 7 years, in March.
Oh, wow.
And so it's interesting to be here, and to be working with both the corporate side and entrepreneurship. When I left, I felt like I was a corporate reject. Right. So it's like feeling like, oh, they didn't want me. And it's like on the other side now, it's like I get a chance to choose who I work with. And so it's a really, really 360 moment for me, or 180, if you will.
Do you think that, you know how people always say, oh, everything that happens to you, leads you to the place you're supposed to be? Do you think that that's the case, Shana, with you and how you left corporate, and the things that you learned at corporate are empowering you in your job now?
Absolutely. I think for a lot of people, at least for me, I didn't know that this was something that people could actually do until I got to my last job, which I thought was my dream job. And so literally when I was leaving, people were saying to me, I didn't ever think you would ever leave here. And I'm like, well, that's a message in and of itself. Is like, people thought I was comfortable enough to be here, use my talents here, but not comfortable enough for me to move into other areas.
Who were those people? Were they family, friends?
But those were my coworkers. But the people at my job, because I was doing all of the things. I had won the awards. I came in as the newcomer and was excelling very quickly. I was really good at creating new programs. I stepped into a job that didn't exist. And so stepping into that role and then excelling in that role and growing a business line from $200,000 to $1.6 million in less than 4 years, like it hadn't been done in that organization. So they're looking at me like, you got it made. Like, you're traveling around, you're doing all these things, you're doing what you say you love. Why would you ever leave? But, behind the scenes, that's not what happens. And so I found myself in a space where some things happened to me and I wasn't even at work. So I had never been demoted a day in my life. I got demoted, not even at work. Nobody came to talk to me about it for at least a month after to tell me who my new supervisor was going to be. I just started reporting to somebody new. That person didn't have a meeting with me until almost 2 months later.
Wow. How disrespectful.
And when they did have the meeting, he shared with me that he didn't know who I was. And I said to him, I'm one of those people that everybody came to my office. So I'm like, is it possible because, we've never had an opportunity to interact and, we've never had that chance. And he got upset. And from then on, it was just to be honest with you, pure hell for me, in my work and what I did and everything being scrutinized. I don't think you have enough work to do until I left. And when I left and I put in my notice, it was like, okay, you put this notice in I think it was a Thursday. They were okay with me being gone by that next Friday. And I was going to be off for 3 days. And so at that particular point, I knew that this was not the place for me, but no one knew that was going on behind the scenes. Right. And then when I stepped out and they became my first contract, nobody still knew what had happened and what had gone on. But the trauma from that lingered on and just impacted the way that I thought about entrepreneurship and could I actually do this thing? And so it was really challenging and really frustrating to step out and just really not have the belief that I could do the thing I just did for somebody else.
And so, Amber, was yours sort of similar in that you became an advocate for special needs because this was your life? You are your brand.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me about that.
I am professionalizing my motherhood, basically, with Unite Mobility Network due to my challenges. And my main challenge is providing financial stability for me and my family because I have 3 other biological children and a bonus, sweetheart, additional, son. So I had to figure out how to create stability for myself. Yeah. I needed a job. So I was like, okay, well, I can be a service advisor at an auto dealership. Mm-hmm. And so I had an opportunity after studying to be a service advisor to work for a luxurious car dealership. And so they let me do my 90 days. And after that, they fired me basically. And they told me that I was unemployable because the amount of money that they were offering, I didn't have the availability to put into it. So they would have to hire 2 more people to cover me because of my lifestyle.
And by lifestyle, you mean your special needs child?
Yes, because I'm a mother of a special needs child.
Wow.
And I have to take her to doctor's appointments and everything like that. And so they needed someone to be there early, to stay late, and to work weekends for the salary that they were paying. And it was only starting out $40,000. So it wasn't even like, it was like big money, you know?
The show's called Wins and Losses, so I want
Yes.
to talk about some of the wins. You had some big wins, particularly around AI, and with your church. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, so recently I taught my special needs ministry how to use artificial intelligence, ChatGPT 3.5, because it's the free version. I taught them how to use that to advocate for themselves. And these are adult women in wheelchairs. They were not born with a special need. They were just getting older. And one, she has MS, and so the ladies that I work with at the church, they were having issues with being bored and not having the right socialization in society. And so with me setting up my special needs ministry, that allowed them to have a community so that they feel a part of something in life. So this is the highlight of their life, coming to church and spending time with me after church so that we can share our wins and losses daily, our challenges, our highs and lows, and I'm able to inspire them on so many different levels. Being a mom of someone who is differently able, they watch me with her in her wheelchair, and it inspires them to do more.
Tell me about your big win.
Absolutely. I would say my big win more recently is launching a business during the pandemic, because with training and development, when the world stops, so does training and development. When the world stops, training dollars get cut. And so it was like, well, I knew my contracts were going to go through. I just didn't know when. You need money to keep coming in. So I started a new business. And during the pandemic, you're thinking, start a new business. Like, why would you do something like that? And so that's how Launch Your Brilliance was actually born, because a lot of my consultant colleagues were contacting me saying, hey, I've always done this in person. I don't know how to do this online stuff. And I'm like, hey, I've always built online training programs and all these things. Let's merge together and start doing this. And so everyone from my colleagues that would do government contracting to contracting with regular organizations, or even teaching other entrepreneurs from coaching programs and things like that, started contacting me. And that's pretty much how Launch Your Brilliance was born. I was challenged by one of my coaches, and she said, you need to make some right now money. So what is that going to be? And my right now money was a package of digital products that went on to sell a little bit over $50,000 in almost 4 months by putting them online, using Facebook ads, getting that whole process set up. And it was something I had never done. And so I was like, well, if this does well, then I was talking to Lamar, and he's like, pour some gasoline on it. Everyone knows that's what he says, right? And so the gasoline was basically offering upsells. And that was the first time I had ever heard of upsells and things like that, and offered the upsells. And between that, starting the business and doing the work with the entrepreneurs, it propelled me over 6 figures in less than 9 months. And so I would say that that's a huge, huge win,
Wow.
For me in Launch Your Brilliance.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that. Did you, Amber, when you were kind of going through all of this, the win specifically,
Yes.
what does it make you feel like when you help the woman get her chair installed in her house the right way? She wasn't taken advantage of. You empowered her to use ChatGPT. What's that do to you personally?
Well, personally, it makes me feel empowered that I didn't go through all of this for myself. The goal of Unite Mobility Network is to reach the masses. And it's difficult to niche down just to special needs and disabilities, people who are born with disabilities, because it's so many people that can end up in a wheelchair. So it just really makes me feel good on the inside to be able to help someone to have a voice. So artificial intelligence, AI, allows people to have a voice. It's like a personal assistant. If you don't have anybody to talk to or ask questions to, you can ask it in very detailed form, and it can give you resources for your area, for your situation, and for your condition on how to better it, things you can use, and it'll take your voice and expand it. So you're learning with a device. So I just know that bringing AI into our special needs community will help a lot of families. So I just love helping families.
And I think you touched on something too. You said it earlier about after 23, there aren't a lot of services available. What do you mean by that? Is that when government money dries up, or what is that? What do you mean by that?
So at 23, I say 23, it's 22, but some kids whose birthdays fall after October, they get to stay within the last year of receiving public education. So through great advocacy for my child, I was able to get her 4 additional years added on to her educational service, because they age out after 18. You graduate from high school. Wow. But individuals who are differently able, that are diagnosed at birth with a disability, have an automatic extension of 4 years of public educational service, where the state is required to provide educational services. Okay. After 23, the state is no longer required to provide educational services, and a lot of families have to find things for their children to do, or their adults. It's so hard to think of them as adults because it's just the age. They're still babies in their mind. They still need that assistance. They need that one-on-one help. And after 23, it is no longer available. And in order to get that type of help, you have to pay a lot of money, like $2,500 a month.
Oh, wow.
Or more, to get that type of help.
So when you're using technology to help these families, then you're also not just helping the family, but helping the individual, the differently abled individual, create a life for themselves, a revenue stream, open up the world a little bit more for them?
That's the goal. That's the goal, to have more families with that type of mindset. But unfortunately, we have to start from the bottom. Mm-hmm. So with Unite Mobility Network, I target educators to add innovation and technology to their lesson plans, so that the person who's differently abled can start at an early age receiving the right type of education, mm-hmm. so that they can be incorporated into society the right way and find productive, positive things to do after 23. The sad part about the situation is, after 23, the options are being in like nursing home environments. There's no educational opportunities if you cannot pass a test on your own. If you can't go to college and sit in a class, take notes, and have the ability to be able to take the test on your own. So if you can't do that, colleges really don't want to be bothered. The professors don't, they can't put forth that effort in helping the way that they were helped in elementary school, high school education, public education.
All right, let's talk about the hard stuff. Let's talk about the losses, because as I said in the introduction, I think people have a warped sense of what entrepreneurship is. Mm-hmm. We see all the good stuff. Social media does a really good job of highlighting all of the good, but it's the difficult times. You learn so many lessons in the valleys. What have been some of the valleys for you, Shana?
We could talk about recent valleys. Let's do that, okay? So last year, I can just speak just recently. Last year, like coming out of 2022, going into 2023, I spent some time in the ICU, 3 days. And as an entrepreneur, we know spending time away from your business really means that your business is impacted in any way. And I lost the thing that helps me make my money, which is my voice. And so I'm in ICU. There's nobody there. I can't call anybody, can't do anything. They have a contact information, but the wrong contact information for the person that they needed to contact. So I'm literally there for 3 days by myself. And then coming out of that, go to the doctor, they're telling you pretty much your stress levels are here. And you do a really good job of masking and coping outwardly, but you need to do something about this. And so January through March of last year, I couldn't work. So as a consultant, you don't work your pipeline, it's not full anymore. So it directly impacts your money. So when they talk about like building up team and having things around you and having systems in place, those things are real. Because when you have to step away, health, family, anything else, when life gets rough and you're trying to figure out, how am I going to take this next step? I'm just trying to figure out how am I going to survive. I'm not thinking about a business. But then you come back and I have to lay off staff because the pipeline is not what it once was. Wow. I'm not also 100%. I'm operating in peaks and valleys. And so when you're looking at what the world tells you should be,
It's okay.
The world tells you should be your goal is to have this thriving business, to have this thing that you want, and you see it right in front of you. You want to touch it, you want to grasp it, and then you see it almost slipping away from you. It's very challenging. And so then to go through all of that and then end up last year almost back in the same place. You go through that peak and valley again and you're like, oh my gosh, like everything got great again. And then everything went in the tubes again. But I will say that support when you are in those valleys is the most critical thing that you can have. Because not only do you feel like you're by yourself, you're not alone, but you feel like you're alone. And to be someone who's maybe not as vulnerable as I would want to be and open with who I am as I would want to be, it's challenging to share that part of you with the world when people tell you that you shouldn't have that feeling. You're an entrepreneur. You're supposed to be on top of the world. How do you manage that?
Tell me about the TSP community when you were going through all of that.
So I think when you're transitioning through a tough time, you have a tendency to feel like you're by yourself, right? And sometimes the stories we tell ourselves, we definitely believe them. And so when I wasn't reaching out, like I was just in my solitude, one, because spending the time in the ICU, I couldn't reach out, right? Didn't have a phone, in there 3 days, couldn't talk to nobody I knew I was in there. So that started the kind of downward spiral of me feeling like I was just alone. And then the community, like the way that I think about it is like when you're sinking and somebody throws you not just a life jacket or a raft, right? They came with a full boat and a rescue team. And that's what the community was for me during that time when I was just going through the darkest times that I had. And they didn't let me forget who I was, but they also never forgot to check on me. They made sure that I knew that I was supported. They made sure that I knew I mattered, and they made sure that they reminded me that my genius still existed whenever I decided to come back. Community means everything. Support as an entrepreneur means everything. And I think that, that's pretty much what was able to get me through.
I love that. Thank you, Shana.
Yes.
And what about you, Amber? Just as we're kind of wrapping up, what would have been some of the losses that have been difficult for you?
Well, I had a health challenge as well. In 2019, my blood levels were low. And so my doctor, she was like, you're going to have to check that out. And so it came up that I had fibroid tumors and I had to get a hysterectomy. So I put it off, and then the pandemic happened. So I had to get a hysterectomy during the pandemic. And, being a mom of someone who's differently able, that internal stress and handling everything, being the good wife and mother and all of those things, and then going through a divorce, all of the stress moving from one location to another. I had to move from one house to another. And so when I had my hysterectomy, I didn't recover well from the anesthesia. My digestive system was paralyzed. And so I ended up spending an extra 2 weeks in the hospital.
Wow.
So I used the book, Traffic, Sales, and Profit, to help me heal. I had to redirect that stressful energy into something that was positive. And I always knew I wanted to own my own business because my grandparents were entrepreneurs in the early 1900s. They were from Osceola, Arkansas, and they were the beacon of that community. They held that community together. And so I knew I wanted to continue with that legacy, the Donald family legacy, and be an entrepreneur because, of course, I'm not employable, right? So I said, okay, God, I'm going to create my own corporation and my own global initiative to help those who have special needs. But of course, how? I see the videos popping up on social media because Facebook is where my platform is currently. And I was like, how am I going to learn it? So looking at Facebook, I found Lamar Tyler. And I thank God for Lamar Ronnie Tyler and for him writing that book, Traffic, Sales, and Profit. And my finances was low. So he said, just if you pay for the shipping and handling, the book is free. I'm like, okay, I could afford shipping and handling. So I used the book and I was reading it and it was like gibberish. I was like, okay. So I used every word in there and I researched it through YouTube. I typed every word in that book into YouTube to make it make sense for me. And so throughout these 2 years of using the book to teach myself about digital revenue, I was able to redirect and shift that stressful energy into inspirational energy. That's why I said I inspire and give strategic planning to parents and professionals who care for individuals who are differently able. Because through that book, through Traffic, Sales, and Profit, Lamar Tyler inspired me. So I was a part of his virtual audience. I was able to talk to him through the internet, and I learned how to do all of this through the COVID shift because I had to be that teacher, mother, educator for my daughter who's differently abled. So we had to do it virtually. So I learned how to set up cameras so that my daughter can be connected to her school. And then I used that to come and talk to Lamar on the internet, and I was able to join Propel, and I got connected with all of the Coach Alex and the other wonderful coaches that came in and out through the Propel information that was given on Facebook. And so that inspired me to be able to think about how to form my book into well, that was the goal, is to take the book and market it digitally. That's what I thought. Mm-hmm. So I had tickets to come to TSP Live in 2023, and that's when everything changed.
I love it.
When I came to TSP Live, I learned how to think deeper, believe harder. I saw other entrepreneurs who was doing, hundreds, thousands, and millions of dollars through digital marketing. And I knew that I can do it. But the part about my situation is that my topic is not trending. Mm-hmm. So it's a passion work for me. That's what Lamar told me. It's about the service.
Yep, absolutely. You guys, I could talk to you for a whole lot longer. But I just want to thank you so much for being so open and so honest and being willing to share the good and the bad. I really appreciate it because I do think people will be helped from it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us for another episode of Wins and Losses. We'll see you next time.